Welcome to Grazora Life, where we're helping small business owners be able to scale up their businesses into a way that it doesn't crush them. Instead, it builds a machine that runs even when they're not there. Brett, what are we talking about today?
Well, today I'd like to cover the stable business pyramid. There's a lot of
pyramid, huh?
A lot of businesses out there that
like
don't have.
Illuminati?
No, not like that. But it could be, maybe. I don't know. Depends on how far you go along with it.
All right. Well, let's find out.
So just imagine a triangle. Could call it a stable business triangle, but that doesn't sound as cool as pyramid. Yep. And it has three aspects to it.
Okay.
So the first aspect is the pricing. And the key metric for this is knowing what your gross margin is. And now that varies by industry, what it should be so that you can actually be profitable. But looking at gross margin is a huge tell in knowing whether or not your pricing is sufficient. And most businesses aren't charging enough.
Is that from the business owner's perspective or the customer's perspective?
The business owner's perspective.
Okay.
Yes, but the thing is, most businesses are too chicken. Most business owners are too chicken to charge what they could charge, and they're leaving a lot of money on the table, which are resources that they can't reinvest to create more value and continue that cycle. I mean, because this isn't about pricing isn't about being predatory. Pricing is about building the life you want and being able to, in turn, create a flywheel where you're continuing to produce greater and greater value.
Okay.
So with that, depending on your industry, software, 80% gross margins, manufacturing, 50% gross margins. Other industries are going to be different, but those are like your minimums for good gross margins that allow you to run a profitable business. And if you don't know what that is, then figure it out. It's not that hard of a calculation.
And what goes into that calculation for gross margin?
Revenue, total revenue, less the cost to deliver, your variable costs.
And when you say variable costs, let's really drive into this for a second and really clarify that for people. Does that mean if I'm I replace windows in homes. So I'm going out there, I'm replacing windows. Which of those costs, because I'm going to have the cost of the windows and I have the cost of the trucks and the insurance and the employees and the insurance that I have to have on the vehicles itself, as well as the insurance on my employees, as well as the insurance on the company. I have all these different costs. Break it down in that scenario. What would be going into the gross revenue number from the revenue? From the revenue, then you have all those things you subtract, then gross revenue. Which are all those things?
So you have your revenue, that's your top line. That's all the money that you get.
Sure.
Then typically from that, we will have your variable cost. So it's going to be the cost of your windows. Okay. Depending on your business model, that could be the cost of labor to actually install the windows. Sometimes there's miscellaneous other supplies that you might include in that. But those are your variable costs. And so revenue less variable cost gives you your gross margin. That's the number that we really want to pay attention to.
And when we say the employees, we're talking about the ones that got in the truck, drove to the job, did the job, and drove back. The cost is the cost while they're driving in the truck, going to the job, on the job, and coming back. It's not the cost of them sitting around, right? Or is it?
It is not the cost of them sitting around. It's just the cost of them doing that actual work.
Perfect.
So then you have your fixed costs, and we're not worried about those, but just for reference, your fixed costs are going to be things like a lease, insurance, some payroll, depending on how your business is split, things that don't go directly into delivering a product or service for the customer. Those are things that are the fixed cost. And you have to have enough gross margin to cover your fixed costs, and whatever's left over, oversimplified, but is essentially your profit.
Yep. And I think one of the ways that really helped me understand the difference between those is if we did not get that job, I would not have certain costs tied to that job because we just didn't have the job, but I'd still have costs tied to my company, even if I didn't win that job. So the difference is which costs showed up because I was doing that job versus which ones just sit around all the time, even if I didn't get the job.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to look at it. That's a good way to separate what costs are your variable costs. Um, and so that is one side of having a stable business, is having your pricing model a model that works. And it goes more than just having your price set. It's about the terms. When do you get paid? So are you doing all of the work and spending 3 to 6 months onboarding your customer and providing a lot of service, and then you give them a bill, which then they don't pay for 30 to 60 days? Or are you getting 50% upfront? Or are you getting 100% upfront?
Hmm.
Or all kinds of different models. Do you offer better terms for faster payments? 2% net 10 is a really, really easy one. You give 2% off if they pay within 10 days, or it's full price if they pay within 30. The value of that cash flow is huge for many, many businesses. And the philosophy here is, unless your business is banking, don't be the bank.
Got it.
You don't need to finance your customers' operations.
So, so far we've talked about this idea of how much profit should you have after you do the job and before you cover any of the fixed costs. So that gross revenue, what percentage that should that be from the actual top line revenue from a job, right?
Yeah, your gross margin.
Yep, gross margin. So that's one thing that we've covered, and different industries have different averages, and you were throwing a few out there. So it's important for a business to have a sense of what that average is for their industry. And then the
Yes.
next thing that you just covered was what? How do we summarize that for everybody?
Pricing terms,
So
because
now we're moving into cash
all of this
flow side of
all
things,
of this
right?
affects your cash flow. So
Yep.
your gross margin is future cash flow. If it's not high enough, then you're gonna find out one of these months you don't have enough to cover payroll.
Yeah.
And and then your terms also, to make sure that the cash is flowing the way that it needs to, so that you can continue to operate it. And the more cash you can collect on the front end, the easier it is for you to grow. If you can collect the cash up front and then earn the job later, that gives you, again, if you're doing proper planning, which we'll get into in a minute, will give you the ability to actually grow and expand your business. Whereas if you're always cash poor and you could still be profitable, but you're scraping the bottom of the barrel at the end of every month. Like, then
Yeah.
there's the month is too long for the amount of money that you have.
So
Um,
I really want to call that out because I've seen a ton of small business owners that really struggle with that aspect. And it's that the cash is like coming in on a conveyor belt. And if you don't get that cash coming in fast enough, you're going to need the cash before you actually receive it from the job and the work that you were doing. And so a lot of small business owners, like you were saying, if they put too much work in up front without getting equal pay coming in to match it, then their outflow of cash is huge, their inflow is really small, and then they have a bank account that goes way up, drops, goes negative, they're pulling into their loan, then all of a sudden they get paid from this job from 3 months back, and then the cash goes shooting up, then they cover all the expenses they'd covered, that they'd incurred, and they pay off the business loan, and then they go right back down into the hole, and you see this giant whiplash effect, up and down, up and down. And those business owners have bags under their eyes, and are super stressed, and are not enjoying life most of the time.
right. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for covering that, and we can tell some more stories about that later from our own experiences. Um, so the next side of this stable business pyramid is planning. So financial planning and analysis, and that comes down to a couple of things. So there's a ladder or hierarchy, and it does depend on how big your business is, how high up this ladder you need to be. But at the very, very, very minimum, for every business, as a business owner, you should not be doing your own bookkeeping. You should have a bookkeeper.
At what point? At what point? If I haven't gotten a job yet, do I get a bookkeeper? Or when on that spectrum of from I haven't started yet to I'm running a massive company. When does the first bookkeeper show up?
Well, if you haven't started yet, then there's a lot more for you to figure out. With this message is for established existing business owners who've been operating for a while.
Perfect.
And so yeah, on a startup, there are other considerations. But if you've been operating your business for a while, you as a business owner should not be doing your own bookkeeping. The bookkeeper's main job is to reconcile accounts. That's what they do. The next level up the ladder from this is a controller. And there's different grades of controller, but what I'm referring to here is somebody who actually watches the inflows and the outflows of cash. They're keeping track of what's actually happening, and they're able to flag things that seem out of order, so that they can be brought to your attention, and they're also helping with the forecasting, so you can see what might be coming down the line.
Now, I think a lot of small business owners act as the controller, and it's just like this. I'm driving in my truck, and I'm like, okay, yesterday I had $3,000 in the bank. I have this job coming in tomorrow. That's going to be 7,000. Payrolls in 2 weeks. That's going to cost me, I don't know, 12,000. Okay, how am I going to cover that? That's the controller factor that most small business owners, that's how it looks for them. And they're just keeping a rolling bank account numbers in their brain along with a few big jobs that they have coming in. And I think, would you say that's a fair estimate of most small business owners?
I don't know if it's most small business owners, but the ones that I've associated with, especially um, in my earlier years, teenager and growing up, um, interacting with business owners, a lot of construction related work, they would have those conversations with themselves while you're driving in the truck with them. Like, so, like, and they would have the conversation. A lot of them would have the conversation completely out loud. So I'm like, why am I hearing these? Like, what are you talking about? But I also got to learn, like, um, these are the struggles that a business owner has from an early age. Is like, how am I going to work? Like, and they just kept a running total of what they thought they had in their head. Can I buy that new piece of equipment that I want? Can I hire another person, or do it? Like, what can I order materials for this job before I get paid for this job? Like, and they're doing that juggling, and it takes such bandwidth, and it's never done well.
Yeah.
And they always get themselves in trouble. Usually they find a way to get out of it, but not always.
Mhm.
But it's this constant firefighting. And so when you get somebody who's actually watching the inflows and the outflows, and that could be your bookkeeper. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a completely separate person. But when you get somebody who's able to look at that kind of stuff and flag it, then you can have a better idea of what's really going on. And then the next level from that is the actual financial planning analysis, and it can all be done in a spreadsheet. Like, you don't need some kind of fancy software for this. You can you can mark out months in the spreadsheet, and you can put in how much money do I expect in January, how much in February, how much in March, what do I expect to have to spend in these months, and you can see where you're going to be at, and you can do a very, very simple analysis of your cash flow, and you can do it 3 months, 6 months, a year, and and doing that, it really doesn't take that much time. You don't need to get every last little dollar and cent in if that's what's holding you back. If you can get 95% of your inflows and 95% of your outflows into the spreadsheet, that's good enough to give you a really good sense of where you're going to be at, and if you're looking to become more profitable, if you're going to get yourself in trouble.
And
And the
maybe
people,
not even 95% if you're for doing this for the first time.
absolutely, like, just
Yeah.
do as much as you can, and you'll be surprised at how much clarity it brings on what you need to do. Because you might find out, oh no, I'm insolvent in 3 months. Or you might realize, oh wow, we're actually doing really well, and all this stuff that I didn't know that I could do to grow my business, I can actually start doing. And
Yep.
so it helps in all ways. And again, it doesn't require expensive software or huge amounts of time. I mean, just go to your records, look at your averages, and see what things are at. The other way to do this is to do it on a per project basis, which this again really works if you sell really high ticket things. If you're building homes, or or things that are very good ticket, you can do this on a per project basis. So you know how much you're going to get paid for the project, you know what your costs are going to be on the project, you know about how long that project is going to take. And from that information, you can do an analysis and you can stack all your different projects together and really see where you're going to be at. This is something that I did with my first really successful business. Right from the beginning, I created a spreadsheet where I plugged in all the information for each project, so I knew exactly where I was going to be at the end of the year. Um, and since I sold most of the projects in the first 4 months of the year, and then the rest of it was just fulfillment, I had a really really good idea of how much profit I had made for that year um, by the end of April. And that let me know, like, do I need to double down and actually go try and push some more sales, or have I filled up the year and we're going to be good? And it really, really gave me a lot of confidence in the decisions that I made. And so when I find out that somebody doesn't even do this and they keep that running total in their head, this is such an easy fix to make. It, literally, you can sit down and in an hour get this figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so the final level above that, and that would be for people that are doing 6, 8, $10 million plus, would be to have an actual CFO. Now, the mistake that I see a lot of small business owners make is they have a bookkeeper and they call them a CFO. A bookkeeper is not a CFO. A CFO is a strategic partner. They understand how your business operates. They're someone that's part of all of your management meetings. Like, they are there and they're helping you make strategic decisions to grow your business. They're not just somebody who's doing reconciliations. In fact, most CFOs don't do reconciliations. They have somebody who works for them that does that.
Yeah, most
So
of the time a CFO gets this nice little packet of information, and the CFO says, "These are the things I want to look at." They look at them and then make other analysis and say, "Ooh, market's shifting this way, things are shifting this way, taxes maybe are shifting this way. We may need to talk to our tax professional to see how we have to plan for that." They're
right.
making very high level decisions, not in there reconciling books and not in there looking at the day-to-day numbers all the time.
So this is another issue that a lot of business owners have that I think we can cover here is mistitling your employees, and it can actually cause severe issues because if you give somebody a title that's far beyond what they're actually doing.
You know the best solution to that? Don't give
I
any employees titles. That's the best solution. Instead, you give them their responsibilities. And so you figure out, here's this responsibility, this responsibility, this responsibility, and you just assign responsibilities out to employees, and then they ask, "Well, what do you do?" "Well, I'm in charge of this, I take care of this, and I take care of that." It's not a title. It is, I'm in charge of taking care of these things. I think for me, that's one of the best things I've seen for a small business owner to be able to get out of that problem. Because if you hire an employee and you say, "I want you to be the director of blah, blah, blah," they have this vision of what a director does. And that's oftentimes very different than what a small business owner is envisioning that employee is going to be doing. And then you have conflict. They're like, "You didn't hire me for that."
Yes, yeah, yeah. So that's actually a really good way to do it is just get rid of the titles and go by responsibilities. I like that. Um, so the very very last thing, going back to the stable business pyramid, is the complexity of your offer. Low complexity is something that you can scale. You can't scale chaos. So if you look at your offer and it
I'm going to
is
challenge that.
okay,
I have seen people scale chaos. And do you know what they get?
alter,
Everything burns down. But they do it. They do it. That happens all the time. I did it to myself. I scaled chaos to the point where I had to be locked into the business 24/7, doing all the things myself. All the problems flowed back to Jason. I scaled chaos, and no one wants to do it. You can do it, but don't.
sure. Well, we'll take that correction. Um, so when you're looking at product, so yeah, we covered pricing, we've covered planning. We'll look at product. Most small business owners get completely lost here. They try and be everything to everyone because oftentimes that's what they started with.
Mhm.
Um, if somebody was willing to give you dollars, then you took those dollars and did your best to not make the customer upset. It didn't really matter what it was for. But once you're established, that kind of mentality doesn't work anymore.
Right.
And so you can think of like 3 levels of offers or products that you can sell. One, so you have your high ticket stuff, stuff in the low thousands of dollars range. You have your high ticket stuff, and then you have your low ticket stuff. Low ticket stuff is a very advanced move. Like for most business models, selling low ticket is just a grind that doesn't actually get you anywhere. Where you really want to focus initially is your low complexity, high ticket offers. And if you can play there, then you can move up to super high ticket offers, and you can get a handful of those customers with even better margins. And then if you're successful there and you grow enough, then you can do something that we can refer to as selling your sawdust. There's usually something in a successful business that has the high ticket and the very high ticket offers that is kind of a leftover. And that's something that you can when you're of a certain size, you can monetize the sawdust, the tailings from whatever other things that you're doing, and that can be your low ticket offer. But again, that's only something you do when you're of a size that complexity doesn't drown you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw years ago a retired mechanic, and he had been saving parts for years and decades. And he had more than one storage unit. And his vision was, eventually I'm going to start selling these parts to people. And he never got to that phase, but he still stored it up. He paid the rental fees on the storage unit, and his thought was he can make all kinds of profit as soon as, because he was just like, "Ooh, here's a used one of these. Here's a used one of these. Ooh, this is a nice radiator. I can," and he just stored them. And it was his idea of having a low ticket thing that he could do, but he couldn't really scale it, and he never did. And it just cost him money for decades, even into his retirement.
Talk about complexity, like all the random auto parts stripped off of whatever.
Right.
Over
Decades of vehicles, every make and model, random parts, just everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the recipe for chaos, and it's no wonder he wasn't. Again, when you think about it,
He scaled it up though. You should have seen his storage that he had on those parts.
Yeah. So, so one of the issues that we get. Sorry, going back to product. So one of the things that you can do is you can take every product and service that you sell, figure out what the gross margin is on each one, and then sort the list by complexity of delivery. And if you do that, you're going to get some huge insights into what products or services you need to cut and which ones you need to double down on. And I want to get rid of the myth that you have to sell low ticket offer in order to get people to buy your high ticket offer. Now, there's all kinds of stories that you have to sell something that you basically make little to no money on, or sometimes even lose money in order to get people in the door for your big ticket offer. And if you feel like that's the case, then stick around, because we are going to cover marketing and sales in other streams. But for today, I just know from personal experience from several businesses that I have consulted with, and my own businesses, that cutting out those complex low ticket things that I thought that the previous owners thought they had to have in order to get people in the door. When you get rid of those, everything about the business just runs more smoothly.
Right. Yeah, I think we talked about this in a previous episode where you were talking about the trade shows, and getting rid of the candy bowl simply removes the people you don't want to be dealing with anyway, and allows more of the right people to show up. Getting rid of some of your products, some of your offerings, does the exact same thing. If it's, like you're saying, high cost to fulfill, difficult to fulfill, low profit margin, you probably don't want to be in that business, or you have to figure out how to innovate. If you really want to keep that product, you have to figure out how to innovate so that you can change all of those metrics to being easy to fulfill, high profit margin, and then you can keep it around.
Well, it's one of those things. Like I see companies, they'll have they'll have staff dedicated just to managing these product lines that make them no money, or are even a loss. And when they realize what they're doing and where their money is actually coming from, just from the simple things that we talked about doing today, it changes a whole paradigm for their business, and they go from struggling month after month, every month to try and figure out, like, am I making enough money? Do I even want to keep doing this? Should I sell my business? Whatever it is,
Yep.
to being very, very pleased with what they have and finally able to start scaling. So pricing, including the terms for your customers, financial planning, make sure that you walk that ladder as you grow in complexity. You need to improve the complexity of your financial planning and the complexity of your offers. Um, Make sure that you're not being drowned in minutia that doesn't bring in the real money.
Yep, absolutely. And wherever you're at as a business owner on the spectrum of all the things that just got thrown at you, the right answer is to pick one and pick a small step forward and start moving in that direction in a small way. You don't have to be perfect at it overnight. You don't have to build the best spreadsheet that accounts for every variable. You just have to start moving in that direction that you want to be heading in, and take a few small steps and see the difference, evaluate, and then keep moving forward in small incremental steps.
Yeah, yeah. Don't definitely. That is always something that I've struggled with, especially in the early days, is thinking that if I'm going to start doing something, I have to do it perfect from day one, and that has kept me from making so much progress that I otherwise could have made if I could just started and just been willing to iterate, been willing to be wrong, been willing to look silly, all of the things. If I would have just started, um, I can look back and know that have gotten so much further, so much faster in business. So don't let anything like that. Don't let I'm not good at numbers. Well, here's the thing: you're either going to get good at numbers, or somebody's going to put you out of business.
Or you just hire people that are good at numbers.
Or that, which again is another way of getting good at numbers. Like the whole thing of being a business owner is that you have a business that works for you, not you working for it. You
Yeah,
get the people that you need, you get the tools that you need to make the work happen. So it doesn't depend on you. At that
exactly.
point, you've actually graduated to what we call real business ownership instead of um, managed self-employment.
Yeah, I think a metric of success for a business owner is how unimportant am I? So the less important you are in your business, the more successful you are.
Which is a complete mindset shift from how small business owners start. Because when you start out, you become more and more important. But
Yep.
there comes a point where you have to flip the paradigm and go, okay, now I'm done being the center of everything. Now I'm done being the one who's core, and I am going to make myself obsolete.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, if you're not making whatever jobs you're involved in, if you're not making yourself obsolete in those jobs every 6 months, then what are you doing? You're not growing. And so that is actually what the right mindset, even from the beginning, is to start doing a thing and then make yourself obsolete in that in 6 months. Make it so you're not the one needed for it. And if you can do
Absolutely.
that with something every 6 months, you win.
I love it. I think that's a great place to end for this week. So thank you all for tuning in, and come back next week for the next episode.
Thanks, Jason.